So we finally got some news about the next big DLC coming to Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and its name is Chronicles: Battle for Greece. And it's really exciting because they're doing a lot to play with the Age of Empires 2 formula. So I think it's worth talking about. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I want to share with you guys, first of all, what even is Chronicles: Battle for Greece? And then I want to talk with you guys about my own personal thoughts and opinions and what I think is going on under the hood, because there's some really exciting things that may or may not be happening in AoE2 land. But let's dive in. First of all, what even is Chronicles: Battle for Greece? Well, this is a single-player focused DLC. The main selling point is this 21 scenario grand campaign. And if you watch the trailer at the top of this article, and I'll have links to both in the description of this video, but you can see, like in this screenshot here, total overhaul of the campaign map, brand new animated cutscene style that looks gorgeous. They're putting a lot of work into the presentation of this single player campaign. We can see a little bit of the blurb here. This is a campaign, by the way, set in the ancient world. So in the Battle for Greece, this is in the world of antiquity. We're seeing the battles, some of the most famous and consequential battles of the ancient world, including Marathon, Thermopylae, and Salamis. We're meeting fascinating historical figures such as the Spartan admiral Lysander, the wise statesman Pericles, and the fearless warrior queen Artemisia. Right? So it's all about the ancient world exploring the world of antiquity, of Greece and Rome. In this particular DLC, right? So it's very, with its single-player campaign focus, it might remind you of some of the previous offerings in the AoE2 world, like Victors and Vanquished or the Return of Rome before that. But in my opinion, this expansion is really going above and beyond what was in those offerings, because they're really playing with the Age of Empires 2 formula. Check this out. We got a complete visual overhaul, mutually exclusive technology choices presenting strategic dilemmas, animated cutscenes, unique naval combat systems with 6 military ship types, 21 scenario grand campaign, 3 new civs, the Athenians, the Spartans, and the Achaemenid Persians, a new campaign screen, and oysters. They scroll down here to say new graphic models including 55 new land units, 19 new naval units, 85 new buildings, 3 ancient civs, an overhaul of naval combat, 6 military ship types including ramming and catapult ships, unique civilization mechanics including customizable TCs and government policies, and even more. They mention elsewhere in the article things like an overhaul to how trade works, how naval trade units operate, as well as oysters that you find in the waters that allow you to essentially mine gold through your navy, right? Just giving more resources and more excuse and strategic opportunity to use your navy and naval control to win games, right? So they're really playing with the Age of Empires 2 formula. And if this sounds familiar to those of you who are fans of the Rome at War total overhaul for Age of Empires 2, there's a good reason for that. It's because this mod is created in partnership between the Capture Age team, who are famous for creating that Capture Age replay software that so many of us love, and the Romae ad Bellum, the Rome at War guys. Those two teams working together to make this expansion pack a reality. And I've got a lot to say about that, but for right now, let me just say it's really cool. And I am seeing just a lot of things coming from Romae ad Bellum. That's what I think when they talk about the mutually exclusive tech choices. I'm assuming that that's, two, just like in Romae ad Bellum, it's 2 unique techs, probably 2 in the Castle Age, 2 in the Imperial Age, and you're forced to pick one, right? That's what we have in Romae ad Bellum. That's probably what they're doing here. What I'm seeing out of this DLC is bringing a lot of the Rome at War mod, that total conversion mod, into an official product, into Age of Empires 2 proper. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. So what it is a single-player focused DLC with this campaign, a lot of really cool and new mechanics and features. One thing they are extremely clear about with this DLC, the Achaemenids, the Athenians, and the Spartans will not be available in ranked play. And they go out of their times multiple ways to say it's not happening. So this will not be a repeat of the kind of that Return of Rome situation where the Romans were brought in originally as kind of a single player skirmish only civ, and then somehow kind of like slowly they got brought into the full AoE2 package. They're saying no, that's just not happening. Don't get used to it. Which honestly, I know I'm getting into commentary here a little bit, but at least from a historical perspective, I prefer. I mean, the Bohemians fighting off against the Huns is already, if you're a fan of history and have a sense of how the timeline works there, that already feels a little bit wonky. But the Bohemians fighting off against Achaemenid Persia makes no sense at all. You don't want that. The ancient world, the classic world, and the world of the Middle Ages, they should be in two separate spheres, right? So, a lot of single-player focus, a lot that's going on here, the teaming up of Capture Age and the Rome at War guys to create this single-player focused DLC. I would encourage you to check out this article because they do a really good job, not just sharing the features and the basic facts, but then also, I think, sharing a lot of insight into what their goals are, where they were coming from, why they're doing what they're doing. One thing that I will mention before I get into my own personal thoughts, they mention how this is the latest in a series of experiments. Whether you're talking about things like the Victors and Vanquished expansion or the animated icons, they're looking at ways to expand the Age of Empires 2 world and put out new products and new experiences for the game that people will be interested in outside of the kind of the multiplayer, like expanding the roster of more civilizations that can go into ranked and things like that. They do mention in this article, and I don't know if I'll be able to find the specific paragraph, but they mention too, is like, this is not signaling that we're stopping that at all. In fact, we've got some really exciting things in the oven we can't wait to show you. Those of you who are fans of the multiplayer ranked scene in AoE 2, there's a lot of really cool things that are coming. Can't really talk about that right now. This expansion pack is for the single player guys, okay? So, with that in mind, what are my thoughts on this DLC? And here's where they talk about, the animated profile icons, Victors and Vanquished, Chronicles, Battle for Greece. It's a lot of experimenting. It's a lot of figuring out how can we explore and expand the AoE2 world. How can we, let's be blunt, how can we monetize this and give people things that they want and continue to make this a thriving world to play in and a world to invest in ways beyond what we've historically done. So they talk about more surprises in the future. Don't be alarmed that don't think that we're abandoning the classic DLCs that you guys are used to and maybe what some of us were expecting out of this DLC. Don't be alarmed, there's more coming, but this is all about experimenting with that single-player world and experience. So, what are my thoughts here? There are things that I've got to talk about and share my opinions on. First of all, one of the things that I love about this expansion, and I want to start by talking about what I love and what excites me about this, the potential here, and then maybe I'll share one or two things that are on the other side of the coin. But I adore the fact that this expansion pack is coming from the Capture Age guys and the Rome at War guys, because this is the story of Age of Empires 2. The story of a bunch of fans who got together because they just love the game, and they created some really cool things for Age of Empires 2 that got eyes and ears in the right places, and before you know it, this fan-created world ended up becoming an official product and leading to AoE2 just growing in popularity, and the fans continuing to make this game and this world flourish. That goes back to the Forgotten, which started off as a mod before it became an expansion pack. So the only reason we even have AoE2 Definitive Edition is because of the fans. Without even getting into the community, things like what Spirit of the Law and T90 have done, and the stories there of just people who love the game that have made it what it is today. Just looking at the expansion packs, things like the Forgotten started off as a mod. And here we have Rome at War, which started off as a mod, and people just doing it because they love it and they see potential to play around with the AoE2 formula. Obviously, that got the right eyes and the right ears on it, and now those guys are being elevated by Microsoft to put out an official product that is so incredibly cool. And I want to tip my hat to the Capture Age team, the Rome at War team. I mean, you guys have done this for the love of the game, and now you're able to actually work on the official thing. Honestly, I'm jealous. I love it, man. That is so incredibly cool, and I wish you guys the best for this. That's just awesome. And I don't know, it gives me a certain hope and a hype for this that I otherwise might not have if this were another just, not official, but, if it were another release from the main team, I don't know, it might just sort of blur with some of those other things, but there's just something really cool about that I enjoy a lot. I really love seeing how this is more than just, more campaigns, but that they're really bringing in a lot of those Rome at War features. And that actually highlights something that is very important. We've got to talk about this. The name of this expansion pack, Chronicles, Battle for Greece. Battle for Greece is phrased in this article as Chapter 1 of kind of a new world within Age of Empires 2. Right? Take a look at this. Let me scroll down a little bit. Chronicles builds upon classic gameplay with a reimagined visual experience and a focus on epic, character-focused storytelling. Chapter 1, the first chapter, the Battle for Greece, introduces 3 new civs: the Achaemenids, the Athenians, and the Spartans. So that's indicating, hey, if this thing is a success, we want to go further in the world of Chronicles. We want to bring in more of, presumably, these ancient civilizations and do more grand campaigns and just do more in this world. So I think that a lot of the gameplay evolutions that they're bringing in are going to get expanded upon in future Chronicles expansion packs, is what I'm suspecting is going on here, right? And that kind of maybe adds an extra element to when they're saying, hey, look, the Achaemenids, the Spartans, the Athenians, they're not going to be in ranked play. Here's what I think may or may not be happening, because this is one of the things that I've been hoping for Age of Empires 2. I think, yes, they're not going to show up in the regular Age of Empires 2 setup. You're not going to be able to play the Spartans versus the Lithuanians, right? Because not only timeline-wise it doesn't make sense, but also features-wise, these 3 civs are built for a different world. There are a bunch of different game mechanics that don't fit with the regular AoE2 world. But what I'm thinking they're trying to do is, or at least this is a success, what they might do is build Chronicles into its own separate ecosystem, its own separate game within a game, right? Like a much more fleshed out Return of Rome. Not in the sense of it being an AoE1 remake, but I remember when Return of Rome came out, a lot of people were saying, I wish this was Roma ad Bellum, I wish that this was the official expansion, that it was a totally new experience, just evolving and developing the way that AoE2 works. I think that might be what they're doing. So I would suspect in the future, my hope is, we're going to end up seeing basically 2 games in the same engine. There's going to be Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and it's going to be developing its own path. And then Chronicles, which will bring in more civilizations and more stories. And perhaps eventually it will have its own multiplayer ecosystem where, as they bring in more civs, you're able to have battles between the Spartans and the Spartans and the Athenians, or between some other new civilizations they bring in. Maybe it's the Germani or the Romans, obviously, something like that, right? Maybe. I think that would be exciting. One of the things I've talked about before is I think there's a lot of opportunity to use the Age of Empires 2 engine and use that section along the side to create new worlds to play in. I think this could be a step in that direction, which would be absolutely amazing. So really excited about that. those are maybe my positives. I mean, I think there's a lot going on here. We got to keep eyes on this because it could represent something really big for Age of Empires 2. The fact that it is single player focused, I think it makes sense for creating this new world. Successful strategy games start with a good single player focus, and then you build the multiplayer on top of that, because the audience for single player stories is honestly a lot bigger than your average ranked multiplayer, crowd. So starting off single player makes a lot of sense. And by the way, I know nothing. I have no inside knowledge. I don't know if they're going to do multiplayer in Chronicles or not. I guess they even say, and this might link into maybe one of the negatives. They say that the Athenians, the Spartans, the Persians won't be available for ranked play, but presumably they're going to show up as skirmish options, so you can actually play Lithuanians versus Spartans in a custom lobby or something like that, which I kind of feel is weird. I would rather there be a more rigid distinction between these two worlds. I don't really want them to sort of blur together personally. At least in the short term. I mean, I guess it gives you more ways to play with the civilizations you're purchasing, but we'll see. We'll see how they develop that in the future. But that part feels a little weird to me. As far as the single player focus, for me personally, I find that I'm a multiplayer guy. I really enjoy playing with the multiplayer civilizations, and I find this campaign a lot more exciting than some of the other things that they put out in the past. But this too is not exactly in my wheelhouse. I was hoping for and kind of expecting another one of those typical DLCs where we were going to get I don't know, a Chinese overhaul or some new civilizations or something like that for the regular game, which is not happening here. But so kind of in the short term, I'm thinking, man, I didn't get what I was expecting or what I was wanting. But what I do see out of this is incredible potential for a new evolution for Age of Empires 2. And specifically, here's the other really exciting thing. I think at the very least, this is a way of introducing some really radical changes to Age of Empires 2 in a way that doesn't mess with the kind of the prestige legacy way of doing things, but maybe will create a hunger within the audience to see some new stuff. Like, for example, the naval overhaul is one of the absolute best features of Rome at War. It is so much better than regular Age of Empires 2. It makes naval combat exciting and fun, just way better than the base game. The only reason not to change it in Age of Empires 2 is because this is how we've been doing it for 20 plus years, right? So by actually bringing it into the game as its own separate ecosphere, you're able to say, hey, we're not messing with the legacy Age of Empires 2 and how they used to do things. We're just introducing kind of this new world where we can do some radically new changes. And maybe as people play around in that, they say, wow, this is so much better. Can we try to bring this in? And to kind of create some momentum to maybe see those changes actually show up in regular AoE2. It'll either do that, or it'll be, again, like two separate games basically being created here. It's kind of my personal opinion and thought. But guys, I gotta tell you, this is just really exciting. I'm really curious to see how this expansion develops. Where does Chronicles Chapter 1, the Battle for Greece, go? Where will Chapter 2 come? How will this develop? I think there's a lot of potential there, and that could lead to who knows what in the future. More worlds, more scenarios, maybe even stepping outside of the medieval or the world of antiquity. Maybe we're stepping outside of history. There could be other things done in the future. Who knows? That journey begins one step at a time. I think this might be the first step with Chronicles Battle for Greece. But guys, I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Are you excited about this? Is single player your jam? Are you looking forward to exploring this really cool grand campaign? Or is that not your thing? You let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel. Let me know what you want to see next from Age of Empires 2, as well as from Iron Kaiser Gaming. For now, this is yours truly, the Iron Kaiser, signing off. Have a great one out there.